Minister, isn't this just a desperate attempt on your part? Isn't this just a desperate attempt on your part to cover up your failures to be able to provide sufficient electricity to households this Christmas?
That was probably an error on my behalf, and I apologise to the community.
Minister, I refer to your government's announcement that it will send residents in some suburbs at risk of suffering a blackout text messages telling them to reduce their energy consumption in an attempt to avoid the widespread blackouts that occurred on your watch last Christmas. And I ask, considering you attributed last year's Christmas outages primarily to unusually high temperatures, can you explain why such a measure is necessary when predicted temperatures for December are average for that time of year? And two, why didn't you do more over the last year to ensure the electricity supply would be sufficient for all Western Australians this Christmas?
The Minister for Energy.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I've got a copy of an extract from the Western Power 2014 annual report. Can you remember who was in government at the time? It says, together we can beat the peak between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. And it shows somebody with their air conditioner on 24 degrees. Here's some marketing collateral from when you were in government. Reduce your energy use between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m. with a dead marsupial inside a wheel. I make it clear, I'm not going to kill any marsupials.
What have you done?
Here we've got a running marsupial inside a wheel. Make saving energy your New Year's resolution. If you want me to. Make your saving energy your New Year's resolution, a different version of the same ad. If it's on standby, it's still running. Switch your future. I just make the point, member, there is absolutely nothing unusual about telling people to save money and reduce their use. That's exactly what Western Power did when you were in government and Synergy did when you were in government. I agree that we did not run that campaign for a few years. That was probably an error on my behalf, and I apologise to the community for not continuing to remind people of these common sense activities. I'll also let you know too, member, that in January this year, after the Christmas outages, what occurred was that Western Power used the facility that they already had available to them to send text messages to customers in an area that there was a potential for an outage. And you know what happened? The community responded to those text messages and outages were avoided. So what we've done is simply remind people on television of what they can do to make the system more sustainable, reduce carbon pollution, reduce costs, exactly as you did when the Liberal Party was in government.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary.
Not to you. Minister, isn't this just a desperate attempt on your part? Isn't this just a desperate attempt on your part to cover up your failures to be able to provide sufficient electricity to households this Christmas?
The Minister.
I mean, the problem with these pre-written questions is that you don't listen to the answer. I just remind people that what we used to do when we submitted our questions to the tactics group, we would write supplementary depending on answer. And then we would listen to the answer and then we would ask a supplementary question. We wouldn't pre-prepare a supplementary regardless of the answer. Now, this is the end frame from the TV ads that used to be run when you were in government. Power prices have almost flatlined. They've gone down over the last 3 years compared to 97% increase when you were in government. Flatlined under us, 97% increase under you. You know, those states that followed the ridiculous idea of privatisation are having a 57% increase in their electricity costs this year and next year. I mean, if you want to know how not to run an electricity system, talk to the Liberal Party. If you want to know how to have a disaster, remember here, the Honourable Dr Mike Nahan said in this chamber that they were planning to import coal from Indonesia. And that was in the Energy Market Review, which was written by Peter Kerr. So don't forget those things. Also don't forget that there was this massive piece of legislation which fortunately never passed the Parliament, which would have got rid of our capacity market here in Western Australia and given the East Coast control over our electricity system. Thank God for the inability of the upper house under Peter Collier's leadership to pass any legislation, because we haven't had to unwind what would have been a disaster for Western Australian energy consumers.